Try not to hear myself breathe.
Try not to talk. Because we are hot. We're perfect, though. I'm going to start doing this for real. So, all right. Got to do the sponsors first. Before I get to you, I got to hype you. So, head over to www.johnbartoloshow.com. Go check out all the sponsors. I appreciate every single one listed there. But first, I want to thank Gallo Tech for the walls behind us. Rhino Metals for the tables. Blackwater Ammunition. Galco Leather, Galco Holsters. And Right On Optics. Those are our sponsors today. Go check them out. The links are down below. Leave reviews. I do a terrible job asking for reviews. Got to ask for reviews. Got to get better at that. I need them. They help. Appreciate everybody. Got a special guest today. This was kind of a little impromptu. A tad, but overdue. His name's come up. We're in similar circles. I think we both share similar passions. So I'm excited. You got the one and only Brendan Allen. What's going on, brother?
What's going on, man? Thanks for having me on.
Bro, this is awesome.
Totally.
It's not every day I have a living, breathing patriot in this place.
We're few and far between nowadays, it seems.
Well, at least out of the closet anyway.
Right.
You're out.
Well, I'm out of the closet.
So, listen. This is an interesting thing. And pull the mic. Make sure, keep the mic close because I want to get I want to get your thoughts on this because having you on is something that I tap into a lot with the different bodybuilders, powerlifters, fitness enthusiasts, and I try to explain to people, and I've been trying to explain to people in the shooting world for a really long time, that all you guys, most of you guys, love the sport of shooting, love the idea of self-defense, and really lifting weights is a gateway drug to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, being physically capable to only do you so well, you got to be able to use a piece too, and I think that just with the lifestyle of kind of being manly, I guess, in the lifting world, guns just kind of go hand in hand with it.
I think, I've had this talk with Jay and other people. I think being in shape is the first line, like taking care of your body. And I've talked about this with Stan on air. I think the first line is taking care of yourself, being in the best condition, the best shape. And a lot of people dismiss that. But the old days, it was always like the fat guy with the 1911.
Yeah.
Now, and we're going to get into sports performance, we'll get into all this stuff, but now the bar's been raised. And guys, whether it's Tony, we brought up other guys out there in the community that are really training hard, combining now martial arts and other things, fitness. It's become like the not fucking around crew, really.
Yeah, guys are getting more and more capable, that's for sure.
That's the line.
Just like you said, Tony, he's the epitome example of who we all want to be. Just none of us want to do the
savage.
Yeah, he's total savage. I mean, whether he has a weapon in his hand or not, that is a very, very scary human being.
And I really think, for the most part, I think it was brushed aside for a long time. And we saw guys like Pat McNamara come in. We saw guys like Tony come in the last 10, 15 years. We saw the bar get raised for what we would call capable. And capable is the right word. When I had Rachel Balkovic on, she talked a lot about being capable. And it's not about, and we see this now at Maddie Forberg, she's starting to do some jiu-jitsu. She's been posting about it. And I actually was messaging her. I think everybody strives to be a more complete athlete. And in the environment we're in right now, you can't overlook it and you can't glaze over it, whether it's diet, whether it's training, all the things. I mean, we're the type of guys, when COVID hits, you want to get in the gym even more. You want to train even more. You want to be more capable. What went through your mind with training when COVID hit? Like, were you like, I got to, batten down the hatches, get more ammo? What was your first reaction?
Well, we were very fortunate that right before COVID hit, we just placed a huge order of ammo. So it just couldn't have worked out better that way. So we got a lot of cheap ammo right before it all happened. So we're pretty set on the ammo aspect of it. Now, in terms of the training and the aspects of health, that definitely, became more of a driving factor for me in the gym. Those that know me, I'm usually a 360-pound powerlifter who can't tie my own shoes or, have a conversation without being heavy of breath and things like that. So when COVID hit, with it being a respiratory issue, that definitely was something that concerned me, and concerned my wife, I'm sure. So we definitely upped our game in terms of training. We're fortunate that we own our own gym, so we were able to train the whole time during COVID. And some other aspects of that, like in our gym, we have MMA and boxing and things like that. So that's some other things that I picked up on during COVID is I started hitting the bag a lot. I mean, when I'm talking about training boxing, I'm not in there sparring. Right?
Yeah, no.
I'm just hitting the bag and, trying to get the lungs better and get the hands better and things like that.
Yeah, and to being perfectly honest with you, I don't think, I come from a powerlifting background. That was my introduction to weightlifting. I don't, like people ask me now about doing jiu-jitsu and other things. I'm like, I do it more as a functional form of training. Yeah, I get some belts and I do that stuff. But like, it's all about function. And I think the base for everybody is to first start out as a good athlete. Right. I think you want to be a good athlete. You want to show good fundamentals. You want to show, you want to show people that you can combine the athleticism, the diet, the training off the range, bring it onto the range. And yes, are you going to expect to be a Max Michel, a Jerry Michalik, any of the above, or even a Tony? No, the idea is to get more and more proficient, get better, be more capable, understand your limitations, know what you can do, but even better, know what you can't do.
Absolutely.
And that's half the battle. And I think for the most part, it's about balancing those things. What was your introduction to shooting and outdoors, and what brought you into the whole genre?
I can't say there was a specific moment where I kind of got more engulfed in it. I guess as I got older and I had a little more money, that definitely helped, because it's hard to buy guns when you're barely paying for food. And eating, Jack in the Box value menu and shit like that. But
love it. As
I've gotten older and, been more financially secure, I've been able to purchase more guns, thus being more involved in the sport, I would say.
It truly is a sport, and I love when people refer to it that way because they understand it. And it's an art.
If you're going to call powerlifting a sport, you got to call shooting a sport.
Well, it's like when I had Valentina on, she broke it down, and for someone who speaks, 5 languages and English not being the first one, she broke it down so perfectly. She's like, it's a martial art. And I look at like weight training, people who diet successfully year round, those are all forms of martial arts. Building your body is an art. Absolutely. Guys who are able to build their body at a high level, that truly is artistic. I mean, it's aesthetic, it's artistic. People who are able to powerlift at a high level, you know this better than anybody, it's all technique. That's when you get to the top, the finite levels. Yes, you have to have raw strength, but you wouldn't be invited to the party if you weren't, capable.
Right.
Yeah, and then it comes down to dialing your techniques in, showing humility, being able to learn the proper techniques. And it's the same with shooting. It's rounds down range. If you're putting 10,000 rounds down range a month, you're gonna get good quick.
I agree.
You're gonna get better fast. So it's putting the time in.
Yeah, like the comparison I would say for those that are lifters that you understand, when you first start squatting, for example, there's so many little things that you have to think about, like turning your knees out, digging your toes in, like so many little cues that as you get better at it, you no longer need to worry about those cues. Now you can start worrying about more advanced cues so you can move bigger weight. Same thing with shooting. Like when you first start, it's like trigger safety and very little stuff and drawing. And then as you get really good at it, you're no longer thinking about pulling your shirt up before you draw because it's just second nature. And like you said, 10,000 rounds a month will make you really good.
Oh yeah, when you get to the top level guys, they're putting 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 rounds down range. You're gonna get good. Now, are you gonna get proficient? Are you gonna have the best techniques? No, that comes with time and training and working with the best, and that's why people seek out, whether it's folks like yourself for powerlifting, people like Jay for posing, or any of the above. You're gonna have to find an SME. You're going to have to find a subject matter expert. You're going to have to surround yourself with them because you can't be experts at all things, and people who say that they are, they're fucking liars. And that's the honest to God truth. Now, obviously, COVID hits. This whole country goes fucking haywire the last 6-12 months. What have you seen in the gun industry? I'll tell you what I've seen, but what have you seen in the gun industry being a guy who's not as connected, let's say, as I am per se, but like as a customer consumer, what do you see going on?
Well, I get a lot of friends who aren't big into guns and I mean, I'm by no means a huge gun guy either, right? And I have friends that have very little or no interest in the guns that are now calling, asking, how do I get a gun? Can I borrow a gun? How do I do this? And so I would have to imagine sales, like you'd probably know this better than I, is that sales have gone through the roofs. And people,
insane.
Everyone I know, literally everyone I know is now armed. And if they weren't before, they are because of COVID.
Do you think it's fear that's driving it? It's like, what are you seeing when they talk to you? They call you up. They say, B, I need some firepower. I need a pistol. They say some weird shit. What do you attribute it to when you get to talking with them? Because that's what really gets me curious. What's driving them to initiate the contact and have the conversation?
I believe it is fear, and I think at the most part is that's fear that law enforcement isn't able to protect them anymore. Like one thing that, people that live in big cities and stuff, they're very fortunate to know that it's one phone call and then 911, to 911, and law enforcement is going to be there very quickly. With all the riots and things that have happened, I think people have seen that you can call 911 and you're not going to get any help. Mm-hmm. And I think that's opening up a lot of people's eyes that before maybe we're for gun laws and restrictions and red flag laws and all this stupid shit. Now they realize, whoa, we can't have any of this. I need to be able to defend myself since, I can't call 911.
It's definitely fear that's the driver. Now, one of the issues I've always had internally, and we have had more gun sales than we've ever seen in any year prior, documented. But what scares me is I hate that fear becomes the number one motivator, because I feel like that only lasts so long. And to build a sustainable Pro 2A community, just like a sustainable strength training community, we have to have people that understand the long term. And something happens when you buy a gun that the left never considers, Brendan. They never consider this. And this is why I don't understand that they choose this the hill to die on politically. When you buy a gun, it's not a right people tend to give back. Right. It's not a right people tend to say, you know what, I needed that gun 3 weeks ago, but I tell you what, I don't need it anymore. Here.
Right.
So it's not a right people tend to give back. And sometimes I don't understand the left's thinking when they attack that politically. Now, that's politically. But from a buyer standpoint, the amount of people that have come out of the woodwork that were, I would say, middle of the road people, they're scared, they're motivated, they think they need ammunition, they think they need this, they think they need that. They come to you, and it's the line of questioning that I pay close attention to. What should I buy? Well, what are you using it for? My house, training, what? And they start there. But do you ever know anyone that buys just one?
No.
And that's the amazing thing about gun ownership. No one ever buys just one.
Well, kind of to talk on what you said about how fear that people are scared. And, I said it's about self-defense. I don't think it's only fear of self-defense. I also believe that people are buying out of fear of not being able to buy in the future. There's a presidential change, in November, which hopefully is not going to happen. The ability to purchase guns may be very limited. So I think that people are also rapidly buying to collect. Maybe they don't even want them, but they know that they may not be able to get them later. So maybe it's time to get them and just because or just in case.
Yeah, I think God rest her soul, the Ginsburg switch now, I think that solidifies the Supreme Court. I think that gives us protection for probably at least the next 10 years. It gives us a lot of clout there. I don't understand, and I've never understood the gun thing. And we can harp on the gun thing all day. I've never understood the anti-gun thing, because a gun doesn't magically jump off that wall. And I've said this before. No guns jumped off the wall today and killed anybody. People don't understand it's the person. You can use a dumbbell to kill me right now. You can use this table. You're strong enough. You could probably use the table. You could use a chair. People don't understand it's not the gun. And in Australia, I have friends in Australia. They say it all the time. They're like, don't give them up. It was a major mistake that they did. And I don't get it. And maybe I've been entrenched in the business too long. And when I talk to people and they say, well, we got to ban this or we got to ban that, I always try to explain to people it's like the masks. Do you understand when you give up certain rights, you never get them back?
I hear you on that. I'm refuse to wear a mask. I'm not going to do it. If it's a private business and they require you to wear a mask, then obviously I'm going to spend my money elsewhere. But the mask thing's getting out of control, and it's the whole compliance. Just wear your mask. No, I'm not going to wear a fucking mask.
And the CDC just came out with a piece saying that the masks do nothing.
Well, we don't. Right now, the media is not paying attention to any science. They're just, going off emotion, and they're controlling everyone pretty well with the emotion.
Do you get scared at all thinking about that? Because that's what keeps me up at night and terrifies me.
100% scares me. I probably watch more politics than I should. just because it doesn't bring anything good to my life. It just pisses me off. And then like it comes to a point where I can't even have a normal conversation with like a normie that doesn't know what's going on. I get so emotional. I'm like, how the fuck are you not paying attention? How do you not know this? And it's kind of taken over.
I got to go through detoxes. So I have to have like a 2-hour break. I got to have like a window of like, we got to shut this down for a minute, for a night. We got to take a night break.
It's hard though, because then you miss a bunch of stories and then you know how it goes.
And you don't want to get into battles with people online and stuff like that. And, but I want to jump to something that plays into that, and I've talked to everybody about this, the cancel culture thing and the Karen culture thing that goes on. It's out of control. Now I think it's starting to dissipate because people are realizing how ridiculous it's become. And it's like literally, Brendan, you're into guns? Oh my God, you're canceled. Right. What does that mean? I work for myself. Blow me. Like, what does that mean? I don't know.
Luckily, I'm in a position where I'm uncancelable. And so I know the internet hates that, and I get a ton of shit, but honestly, I don't even care at this point. I mean, it was funny because it almost seemed like it stopped. If you remember, right before COVID hit, it almost seemed like, and then right when COVID did hit, cancel culture kind of stopped because people were really scared and had a reason, something serious to be scared about. Then when I think everyone kind of knows COVID's not that big of a deal, and then cancel culture picked right back up, and even harder, way harder than before. I mean, it's wild now,
It blows my mind because we all come from powerlifting, outdoors, bodybuilding, fitness, shooting, all these genres are very alpha industries, okay? But you have some of the best people in these industries, the best.
Agreed.
These are people that if I picked up the phone and I needed something, they would not hesitate to do it in 30 seconds. So you have such great people in these industries, such supportive people. These people that tend to bring out the cancel culture and things, or the Karen culture and things, these are very closed-minded people. They have an attitude of, you have what I want and I'm going to take it from you by any means necessary. Or I'm going to say something that's going to put you in a damaging position and then you have to give it up and then I get it anyway. Yep. And it's a very wah-wah, what I call like a wah-wah attitude. Yep. And what's terrifying to me is we've let it go for so long, and then when the evidence is glaring people in the face, like, what's her face, the Who's the Boss girl, whatever her name is. The fuck is her name? Yeah, Christine, Alyssa Milano. Yeah. Running around, Me Too, and this and that. And then you find out she's on the payroll for this, and she's on the payroll for that, and she's totally politicizing the issue. Then the Joe Biden stuff comes out, right? That he was a grabber, whatever you want to call it.
More than a grabber.
More than a grabber. But it comes out and it's like, what? Like all of a sudden people develop what I call amnesia.
Oh, yeah.
They don't, what? That didn't happen. They ignore it. And it makes no sense to me when you're around such common sense, good thinking people in our worlds, and some of them, like you said, you still want to battle with them or have the conversation, but the art of the conversation, Brendan, is what's dead. And that's what scares me. You're
not allowed to give your opinion if it doesn't fit the left's, it doesn't fit their agenda. And they're so powerful and so organized, and they all message each other and then group attack. It's hard to beat. It's unbeatable.
It's unbeatable.
The problem though with the cancel culture, in my opinion, is with the big corporations and stuff, is that you have people that think that social media is real life. Like they think Twitter is everyone's opinion, and like just because you get mass mobbed on Twitter, they think that's the majority of people's opinion. It's not the case. I mean, we've seen this in a lot of powerlifting federations and stuff where the intersectionalism bullshit's infiltrated into it, and they get a couple DMs or messages from, it's like 5 or 6 different people that have 20 accounts that they're just on there all day badgering these big companies, and these guys up in the company, they don't understand. They think that's everyone's opinion, so they make these emotional decisions based off what the flack they're getting on social media, and they think that's what everyone else wants. And it's dissipating the sport of powerlifting, that's for sure.
The $1 million question though is, how do we fix it?
You stop responding to people on social media, the big companies. I know they want to use their pages for promotion and how convenient it is and all that, but it's also, I think it's hurting companies more than I'm sure there's a lot of companies that exist only because of social media, kind of like my own. But I have to imagine for the bigger companies, it's just hurting them, where they need to maybe have a platform that doesn't allow comments or messaging or things like that, where they can just post to promote, but they don't need to have the feedback from the individual.
Yeah, and I'm a lot like you in the sense that I think if people have a different opinion, I'm okay with it. But be willing to have a conversation and be willing to have an open debate and be willing to be honest about it. Like if I come at you and say, I don't agree with you, I'm going to provide X amount of facts, right, to support my argument as to why I may not agree with you. But I feel like I said, coming back to the art of having a structured conversation is lost. I feel like I'm dealing with children. Like when you were little and you got into like the debate, like where did you grow up? What town? What?
Lomita, California.
California. So, okay, you might get into a debate over the Lakers are better than the Celtics, right? But I'd say, Brendan, we can have that fight. But you have to give me 3 facts as to why the Lakers are better than the Celtics, and I'll give you 3 facts as to why I think the Celtics are better than the Lakers. We're probably not going to agree in the end, but let's agree to disagree, and my facts are cool, and your facts are cool, and we're going to both find ourselves in the middle. Nobody can, the issue I have is nobody can do that on the left, because when they make their point, it's, rah, burn your house down and kill your business.
Well, all these kids, the left is college-educated kids, right? University kids. That's the majority of the left. I mean, not the majority, but a lot of them seem to be that way, right? And they've been taught to not have an argument. Like I've seen it on social media. It's crazy. Like especially right when all this when all the BLM stuff started, you have people who are like, "Oh, here's my story about racism, but I don't have to tell you about it. You just need to accept that I had this." Like it was just so bizarre.
You have to just eat it.
You're right. And people were like, "Oh, I deal with this every day." Well, can you give me a specific example on how you deal with it? I don't need to. I don't need to give you an example. Just accept it. Well, you got to fucking show me something. You can't just expect me to give you empathy or sympathy.
Well, empathy is the most used and abused word right now in politics. Empathy. And I had this conversation. I had the comedian Bobby Sausalito on. It's a riot. And he goes, are we sure we want an empathetic president? He's like, let's really think that one through. Or do we want someone that can make decisive decisions when we need them made? And I think words get tossed around because they sound good on TV, and I think people use them as a punchline. I personally don't really want a tremendously empathetic president. I can understand having empathetic people in politics and having people that understand, but we need someone who can make decisions.
I agree with that.
And not someone who's going to dance around and say, if I'm in a room with a whole bunch of Latinos, I'm going to cater to the Latino agenda.
What's up, SA?
What's up? And I'm in a room full of white people. I'm going to cater to the white agenda, or I'm going to cater to the black agenda, or the poor agenda, or any agenda. And what I see more often than not, whether it was Hillary or Biden or any of these candidates, without getting too deep into the weeds with the politics, is that ability to try to cater to those audiences is so out of control and so ridiculous that you could play clips side by side where they contradict each other constantly because they're in a room and there's fundraisers there and they're trying to build an audience in that room. And it just leads to so much bullshit and so much BS that you don't even know what's real anymore. And is that empathy? Because I don't want to sign up for that. Right. If that's what empathy is. If empathy is, I'm going to look you in the eye and say, Brendan, yeah, you're right. I'm going to come to your house. I'm going to clean your house. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And then I do none of it. I'm worthless to you.
Very.
That's not what I need. You know, I need someone who's going to make a decision, who's going to look me in the eye and say, you know what, I can help you on Tuesday, but I can't help you on Wednesday. I'll be there for an hour, and that's what I can commit to. But I think the empathy thing is so blown out of control because it doesn't fit what I feel is real in a leader.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. So how do you define empathy? Because I would understand it as
great question.
Putting yourself in that person's situation and like understanding what they're going through. It would probably be the technical term of empathy.
I'll accept that.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess I want a president that can understand what we're going through, but he's making decisions based off the entire country, not an individual. I don't.
No, I like that answer. I like where you were going, and I think you're right. But I just think it's kind of like a word that's been used and abused. It's just that it's getting tossed around a little too much as a campaign slogan, and not so much used in a way that I feel is representative of what empathy really is, which is what you just described. Hey, I understand times are tough right now. We're going to put this program in, this program, and this program. We can't dwell on the non-solution. We need to get to the solution. Dwelling on the problem gets you nowhere. It's kind of like the people that call you and all they want to talk about is their problems. They never tell you about the solution out of it. And I feel like the empathy definition's been distorted a little bit into we have to sit around and say, you know what, you're right. We have to tear all those statues down and we have to do this and we have to do that. And that's going to make everybody feel better.
Well, that's irrational empathy. Like, tearing a statue down is not going to fucking fix anything.
It's like, should we have been more empathetic when Flex Magazine was going down the toilet and literally sacrificed Olympia, which is essentially what they did to try to save the magazine and try to save the Olympia show? And should we be so stupid to look at common sense, which would be look at the Arnold show and the success it's having, copy that model and impregnate Olympia with it? Shocker. Let's use something that works.
Absolutely.
Let's use a model that works. But that's part of the problem, I think. I think we get into these situations where we're trying to salvage dead space or a situation that can't be salvaged, or we're dwelling on the problem, and it doesn't fix the issue.
Yeah, I could definitely agree with that. I mean, everything going on right now in the culture war is fake empathy. Is my it's a lot of politicians that are pretending they know what it's like to be in your shoes, and it's just it's all bullshit. They have no idea. They live in their ivory towers. They don't know what the common person deals with. That's why you have people like Nancy Pelosi that exist like her.
She's crazy.
She's very crazy. Did you see her brain fart yesterday?
Yeah, I saw the meme. Somebody hit like reset on her.
Oh, it was very strange.
Did you see the? We're gonna get to. There's a bunch of shit I want to get to, but did you see the piece on when? Okay, forget about the mask thing and the fucking I have to say this. I loved what Junior did, Don Junior. He did the post where he goes, you mean to tell me the third person from the launch codes was able to be duped by a hair salon? Right. I was dead. I couldn't believe he said that. I was dead. But here's the problem. I think the older left, and I say older left, and I think AOC does a good job of understanding this. The younger left understands this. Like, we have the internet, honey. I feel like saying to Nancy, like, you really? Like, the shit that comes out of your mouth, like, it's totally researchable. We can figure it out.
They don't need to, though, because they know that the audience is not going to go research it.
But they still think they're going to say it, and we're going to eat it.
Well, majority of the public eats it because the mainstream media covers it that way. And then you have us non-normies that look at the independent content creators and actually get a different perspective of it.
I was dying. It was on Mad Money when he called her Crazy Nancy.
Oh my God, that was great.
I was dead.
He's like, but I would never say that. The president said it. She goes, well, you just said it. That was gold.
I almost fell out of my chair when I saw that clip. I didn't watch it live, but somebody sent me the clip and I was like, oh my God. And after he was cracking up.
Oh my God.
I mean, he was dead.
Cut the camera.
Yeah, no, just get the shredder, burn it down. But like, I was just dying. Here's the thing. There's so much craziness out there right now, and I hate, I'm trying not to turn it into, it's not just about the politics. There's the pedophiles, there's all the shit that's coming out. I started watching that show. Did you guys watch the show The Vow yet on HBO? You got to watch this show. It's like one of those Scientology cults,
okay, right?
That they like kidnap the girl. Write it down. I'm telling you want to watch this. The Vow. And I say to myself, this whole pedophile thing and everything that's starting to bubble over, and it's creeping into politics now, and it's creeping into Hollywood. I think Hollywood's finished, Brendan. I think we're going into an era now where open architecture, streaming, everything else is starting to take over. And I think Hulu's making a huge aggressive, I think it's Hulu, they're doing those open ads, you can bid. And I think that this is where it's going. I think we're witnessing the death of the Hollywood star because I think we're all seeing through it. They're all crazy.
No, I 100% agree. And I think with everyone working on their own now with COVID, when COVID happening, it's showing that you don't need these big production videos because you can stream and reach more people if you put out good content with the YouTube channel, right? I mean,
if Rogan can hit 5 million, that's a pretty big number. I mean,
I think that's going down.
Well, the Spotify thing,
right? I think that's all going to end up biting him in the ass because, with the whole, there's Spotify employees right now that are trying to make the Rogan show so it's going to be censored to where before they air it, they're going to review it and then they're going to do fact checks, trigger warnings, and then they can even omit certain areas that they don't want to get aired, which is essentially the death of Joe Rogan's show. We all love that show because it's raw and real, and we know that you're just going to get the facts, right? But then on his podcast the other day, when with Ted Kennedy, when he mentioned about the guys starting forest fires, the Antifa guys starting forest fires, then the next day he comes out and issues an apology. Joe Rogan would never have come out and issued an apology before. So that's Spotify getting flack from what he said, and then Joe Rogan come out and issue an apology to fact check. Even when his apology was false, he said there were no one starting fires. That's false too. There's been 6 people arrested that are affiliated with BLM or Antifa for starting the fires up in Oregon.
Do you think he pulls out of that deal or that deal blows up?
Yeah, I mean, we don't know how it's written, so we don't, you know what I mean? How could we say? Because he might have, he might be locked in for like a couple of years or something.
It's a 3-year deal. The way it came to me, I won't say how, the sources, it's a 3-year deal, $100 million. And he undersold it, which is crazy enough because the stock went up 8% and the owner made $480 million. So he undersold the show. Why that was so important for us as podcasters and people in that space was because he now set the ceiling. And you know how important that is. So whether it's Pod 1, whether it's Westwood 1, whether it's any of these different entities that are out there that we have the opportunity to maybe participate in to reach a greater audience, Spotify, any of them, it now sets a ceiling on a bidding war of potentially your show, my show, anybody's show. But I agree with you. What makes his show is the raw realness. And he's a first to build that transcending audience that crosses over. And I think he's able to milk that. I don't know if he makes it the whole 3.
I don't think so.
I have a hard time believing that he will, just for the simple fact that I think he knows this is generational wealth that he pulls in. But at the same time, how it's written, he's got to have an out somewhere, and I think at some point he's going to say, you know what? Because you know the drill. Like, you get sick of selling the ads, and that's why he did it.
Right. It's
turnkey. But once he gets enough out of it, he can always go back to doing it raw and real.
YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see. Spotify is too small of a company. Like, I know it sounds silly. It's an enormous company for most people, but compared to YouTube, it's nothing. So with YouTube, they could attack YouTube, and YouTube would be like, hey, there's all these other creators that are putting out other shit. So Joe Rogan's allowed to do what he's doing. Now that it's Spotify and it's Joe Rogan on Spotify, it's going to be all laser focused on Joe Rogan. And I mean, even when he signed over, he didn't, I mean, I don't know what he owes us as an audience, but he told us that, all of his shows would be carried over into Spotify when all of the most of the conservative shows did not get carried over. Alex Jones, I mean, a couple of them. So actually more than a couple of them, there was quite a few.
There's quite a few, yeah.
Quite a few. So that already kind of, I know that pissed off a lot of the fans, especially the conservative fans. They're like, why are you going to agree to go to this and then not carry?
Well, I think it pissed off his dieharders.
Yeah, for sure. One, I mean, if you remember when he first said he was signing with Spotify, Alex Jones came out and was like, oh, we're taking on Spotify, fucking me and Joe Rogan, head to head, da-da-da-da. And, made that big fuss. And then obviously it turned out to be bullshit. Because I mean, the way I interpret it, and again, this could have just been Alex Jones going over the top of it, is I thought Alex Jones was going to be his first show on the new Spotify platform.
Right.
Just to kind of prove, like, no, we're going to be open content still and be able to do my show the way I want to do it. And then it turned out that, no, none of the even old shows even carried over to Spotify. And
he owns his masters, so if he leaves, his masters come with him, which is always important, and I think that's, something Howard Stern does. Everybody, like, they own their masters. So maintaining the integrity of keeping your book is the most important thing. And I think if he left, he could put everything back onto the YouTube platform, or he could take it to, I think the deal was a good deal, but I think it's unraveling without some of his control.
I would agree with that. So I don't think that Joe Rogan wants to be fact-checked or wants to be, triggered warning or censored, on a show. And obviously that's what they're pushing for. And, I mean, how it goes in a company. You get enough people screaming, they're eventually going to appease them.
Of course. But we'll see how that plays out. But either way, what's great about it for us as podcasters, streamers, people out there, it sets a ceiling of what the potential is.
Totally.
And to everybody out there, we're all huge fans of Joe's and of certain people that have helped build these platforms. But the reality is, I think when you have a bigger entity that has the control, sometimes like a ball of yarn, it starts to unravel a little bit and you can't control or stop where that unraveling goes. So it might start out as, well, we didn't get these episodes over, or hey, Joe, we don't want to host these ones. And what are you going to do? You're going to walk away from $100 million, which is generational wealth. I mean, if I put a bag of $100 million on this table, you'd be surprised what a lot of people in this room alone would do.
I would do a lot of
things. So, it's like, so you can't question his integrity until it gets to a point where they're censoring guests, or if we find out that they're not allowing him to have guests, certain guests, that would become an issue.
Well, they can do that inadvertently. They can do that
True.
without even saying you're not allowed to have this guest. Or like I just said, how their employees are trying to push for that censorship, where eventually there's going to be a point to where they're able to, it'll be small, where there's like 5 seconds of just a little miss because Joe's guest said something over the top that they wanted to cut out. And then that 5 seconds turns into 5 minutes of a different podcast.
It's true.
To where Joe then does a podcast that he wants to put on the platform that they won't put, they'll just say no. So mind you, I believe his contract, they don't have an obligation to air his show. It's just an exclusive deal that they're the only ones to host it. So Joe can't make a podcast and say, no, you guys have to air this. They can just say no. From the way I understand how the contract is.
Yeah. Do you think podcasting's a bubble right now?
Meaning?
Do you think there's too many of them?
Oh, of course. But that's what makes them great, because everyone's just trying to figure out what works. And then I believe as bigger podcasts come along, like people start gearing towards that way. Like Joe Rogan, for example. If you look at a lot of podcasts now, yours, Tim Pool's, they're kind of geared the same way. Like, because Joe kind of set that example. I could be wrong with this, but I know it is a little annoying that everyone has a podcast, everyone their mom does, but at the same time, you don't have to fucking listen to it. So
it's true.
I don't really care that there's a lot out there.
Yeah, and honestly, the cream always does rise to the top in everything. And I think, for the most part, what our definition of what a quality show is, there's people that do guest-based, there's people that don't do guest-based. I tell people all the time, because you probably get this question a million times, I want to start a show. It's like starting a T-shirt company 10 years ago. I want to start a T-shirt company, or I want to start a supplement company. And I don't know anything about that shit because I never got into it. But when people come to me and they say, I want to start a podcast, I'm like, well, what kind of show do you want to do? What's the scale? Do you want to do one a week? Are you doing guest-based? I try to peel back those layers and start to understand what they're trying to do. And I tell people all the time that don't want to do guest-based, they just want to go on and rant. I say there's very few shows where it's just the host talking that are uber successful. You have like Andy Frisella, you have certain people that have been able to get up there and scream and shout, and they're able to like build an audience off of it just being them. That's very hard to do. When you do guest-based, you almost have a guaranteed growth spurt because the nature of it, people want to share it, people want to talk about it. And at the end of the day, the interviews are more compelling than sometimes your thoughts, because I don't think I'm that interesting that I'm going to get up there and do 2 hours a week and anybody's going to listen to it.
It's like the collaboration.
It's the collaboration. So I try to explain to people, first decide on your scale. Do I think everybody could have one? Yeah. I've even talked to Tony about this Real World Tactical. I'm like, you could do a 20-minute one where it's just talking about your training that week, what you did, and people would tune in. Totally. Could you do 2 hours? I don't know. Not everybody's cut. 3 hours is a long show.
It's tough.
It's a long show. I try to do about an hour to an hour and 90 minutes. Hour and 30 minutes, 90 minutes total, because I feel like that's a sufficient amount of time. People are in the gym, people listen, people want to hear people's thoughts, but I feel like you get your point across in that period of time where people are able to kind of, okay, well, I get the gist of what this person's about. But I think for the most part, people who dive into it don't necessarily have a plan. What advice do you give people that are trying to start one?
Well, I like what you said with dissecting exactly what it is you're trying to do, because it's like when people tell you how they want to start this business, and you always tell them, this is an original idea. It's just, I always tell them how, what's the difference between a goal and a dream? Like when you have a dream, it's just something that you want to happen. But when you have a goal, it's because you've created steps to achieve that goal. So same thing when you say you want to start a podcast, like, okay, cool. What is it that you want to talk about? And then, I've had people tell me that, I just want to talk about what it's like to be a dad. And I'm like, okay, well,
what's the audience?
What the fuck? Why is anyone going to care what your experience is like, what it's going to be a dad? So obviously having something, to get into what you said, your audience, right? Who are you trying to reach? If you're going to do a podcast that's like you and 15 to 20 of your friends are involved in that with listening, and it's like you guys are talking about your inner circle, talk about whatever the fuck you want. That's going to be cool because it's your small circle. But if you're trying to create a podcast to reach others, you got to have a plan. You got to have a plan as to why they're going to care to hear what you have to say. And then you have to prepare.
Yeah, people don't realize the preparation. And a lot of times I tell people, define for me what success would be in that space. Like you just said, are you trying to get 25, 30 people like in your immediate circle to listen? Because if you are, you'll hit a home run.
Right.
That's great. If you're trying to really expand and grow and get into other areas, for example, when I started my show, I wanted to have everybody around the defense industry, whether you were into bodybuilding, fitness, strength training, nutrition, shooting, jiu-jitsu, UFC, whatever it was, whatever the genre was that you were into, I felt it all fit because I've had a theory for a long time in media in the shooting world that the shooting world isn't about the gun that goes bang. It's about the people, and it's about hearing their story. And everybody I've had on the show has either shotguns, likes to shoot guns, likes to participate in some type of training, likes to participate in some higher level training, and they enjoy the art of self-defense, and they enjoy protecting themselves, their family, and that's the theme of it. And a lot of the people I have on that are experts in different areas, you get to hear their journey through that. And I felt like that was a voice that was lacking. Because if I was to ask you, tell me the 3 best gun industry podcasts, you'd probably draw a blank because there's just not a lot of them out there. A lot of them tend to become glorified Glock 19 reviews. It's like until Mark Bell came along with his show, right? A lot of the fitness shows out there are people that were interviewing people in the fitness genre. It was all about like, how much do you bench?
Right.
How much you squat? And that was the running joke. They were all kind of like, almost because no one knew what to do. They were glorified reviews. Nobody was getting into the story, the journey of how did you even get into weightlifting? How did you even get into this? And how did you even get into that? And that's what people want to hear. I mean, people wake up and literally thousands, I don't have to tell you guys this, thousands of people watch Jay make eggs in his kitchen on JTV because they want to see what's behind the scenes, what somebody does on their own time, what they enjoy when nobody's looking. And that's why I think people like Seth Ferrocci have had success. That's why I think people like Jay have transcending success because they're giving people a peek behind the veil of what goes on in their life. And as you do that, it only expands your audience. And that's how I've always felt. And I think people who fail to understand that people don't want to see the obvious. I've had SEALs on. I've had senators on. I don't sit there and talk to them about buds, and I don't sit there and talk to them about, Congress. We talk about what they enjoy when they're not there, or what they enjoy doing, or what goes into their preparation, their mindset, all the things. Talking about the obvious is something that we can get anywhere.
Right.
And I feel podcasting is a time to be long form, a little more introspective. What helps you shape your thoughts? What helps you get your mindset? Why do you think that way? So people can have a better understanding of the person when they walk away from listening to a show. And I feel that's my definition of success in a show, is getting that point across.
No, I agree with you. It's making someone relatable, like personable, like for example, for myself, like someone sees someone that very accomplished in powerlifting, and they're like, oh my God, like what is that guy's life like? Well, here in podcast form, you get to hear a lot more about what my life's like and how it is that I got to the highest level of powerlifting and stuff like that. Well, which brings along with you with the gun world as well. Like when you watch guys like Tony or just great shooters or things, you're like, how do you get to that? There's no way. And then once you get these long contents to where you can actually find out that
and you understand them. It's the context. Absolutely. And, I think everybody strives to be, as we talked about, tremendously capable. And for everybody, capable is a different definition. I say all the time, as it pertains to shooting. When I was on the range all the time and I was out there, and I was fortunate in life that I got to travel around and train with the best, whether it was in fitness, whether it was in shooting, everything. And I was lucky because I was a behind-the-scenes guy for a while, and then, my secret got out a little bit. I was the guy to come to, whether it was with guns or shooting or getting on the range and training, and Tony and I were bopping around, the country and doing a little bit of everything. I kind of started to develop these theories that all these things are mixed. They all work together. And I use the term, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, a lot. And I started to understand that, geez, these powerlifter guys, these bodybuilder guys, they're just like us. They're just in a different genre. Yep. And you start to sift through those layers. And then you start to look at the MMA community. These people should be our best friends. Holy shit, Well,
the fitness community is very liberal.
In nature, yeah.
Yeah, it's very liberal. And I mean, just with bodybuilding itself, it's pretty progressive, I would say. So, yeah, in the fitness community, people are pretty shy to talk about, their love for guns or, if they're conservatives or things like that, just because the flack you get and then the missed opportunities that come along with that because cancel culture and things like that. But I would have to say, though, things have definitely turned, and I think it's, the Pro 2A stuff is becoming more and more common in the fitness industry, and you're seeing a lot more, meatheads out there shooting guns and putting out videos like that, which is cool to see.
I can safely name 7 or 10 of the top guys that I know not only own guns, but are Pro 2A guys.
Oh, yeah.
Flex Lewis, Branch, Jay. I can keep on going. It can go on and on. Guy. And I don't mean to call you guys out. I love all you guys. But you've all been on the show, and it's not like a fucking secret.
Right.
But these guys, yeah, they can't broadcast it because, as you said, the nature of the progressive liberal environment that they're in, call it what you will, because the fitness industry has always been dominated by California to an extent, everything that comes out of Venice, the ownership groups of some of these different entities. But I think that there is a slow bubbling over now, and it's one of those things that in the fitness industry more than any, I think they can't fight it.
Right, and I understand why there is the reluctancy to talk about it, because they develop their audience based off their fitness, not off their gun views.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why I get it as to why they're reluctant to talk about it and they hold back. But I just think it's time that people should be able to broadcast what the hell they really feel.
Well, and I think the gloves are off, Brennan. I think you see people using their platform, whether we agree or disagree with it, people like LeBron, people starting to use their platform to convey their views for better or worse. I have people on. I just had Christina Vargas on. She's like, look, John, I got a daughter. She's a super conspiracy theorist, which is fun, but she's like, I got a daughter. I'm concerned. Like, the environment scares me. I want to make sure I have what I need to be able to defend myself and my family. And who can argue with that? How can you argue with that? You cannot argue with that. Yeah. But you go down the line, whether it's Rob and Dana and whoever else, they're all Pro 2A in their own way. They don't want to shout it from the hilltop because they're worried about the backlash within their community. And then people come back and they say, oh, you're a fitness person, just be a fitness person.
Isn't it crazy, though? I know, and that's kind of the point I made, right? But isn't it crazy how people can't be okay with wanting to defend themselves?
It's actually terrifying.
So it really is.
It's actually terrifying. And what I find quite interesting about it is we can sit here and have a conversation, and I could say, Brendan, I want to get better at powerlifting. I want to get stronger. I want to get more explosive, whether it's for my jiu-jitsu or whatever else it is I'm training for. And it's almost like you have to be in the closet about it. And you have to be, like, you could say to me, I want to get better at my shooting. Where should I go train? And everybody has to sneak around because everybody gets worried about the backlash. Well, I think it's going to get pushed to a place, and that's what we were talking about earlier, where it's going right now, that people aren't going to give a fuck.
Yep.
They're just not going to give a fuck. And I always think where the left screws up is they take it too far.
100%.
They take it way too far. They go to a level it doesn't need to go to. It's like, I've said it repeatedly on air, and I'll say it again. You have to win the office first. And you have millions and millions of new gun owners out there that are voters. And I told you that is not a right that people give back. So why die on that hill in the campaign?
Yeah, it's almost like they don't...
They don't think.
Yeah, or they're in this, like, they're in their own little bubble. The left is in a bubble. We know that. Like, Twitter is... Like, it's 2% of the population is on Twitter, and 2% of the people on Twitter are the ones that are actively making the post, or 20%, whatever. It's a very low number anyways. So you have this crazy little bubble of people that just regurgitate their same bullshit and share each other's stuff, and they think that that's the whole world feels, and that they think the whole world feels or believes that way. Because you have these, the one girl you're talking about with a huge following, acting like that's what everyone else wants. But in reality, they're being paid to fucking say this shit.
Right. Melissa Milano.
Yeah, Melissa Milano. They're being paid to say this shit. There's no genuine. They all. I'm sure they all have guns at their house, or
100%,
or guard security or armed security guarding them.
100%, and that's what's terrifying about it. Is almost like they glaze over that. Now, it's interesting, and we're already seeing it in Minnesota, and we're seeing it in other states where they go through this defunding, and when they do this defunding, then they're shocked that there's no cops around. Crime's up.
Well, their new thing is saying that now Trump wants to defund the police, which isn't at all what happened, and I'll explain this. So in New York, like with de Blasio, for example, they pulled $1 billion from their police force, okay? So it's $6 billion that they get. They pulled $1 billion. That's 17% of their money that they took away. That's the feds give them money for the police force. So the federal government is now saying, okay, since you guys aren't going to give the money to the cops, we're not going to give you that money. Which then now the left turns to where Trump's trying to defund the police. Or in reality, Trump's saying, no, we're just, if I'm giving you money if I pay you to mow my lawn and I come out there and the lawn's not mowed and you take off, okay, the next time you come over to my house to mow the lawn, I'm going to like, hey, I'll pay you after you mow the lawn, which is essentially what Trump's doing. Trump's basically saying, we're not going to give you guys this money until the police start enforcing the laws. And you know Trump, you know how it's going to be. He's doing the big ask. So he's saying we're not going to give you any federal funding. Then they'll start enforcing the law, and then they'll give them the federal funding. But, you know, the left will turn it as, you know, something crazy that Trump's trying to defund the police.
Well, there's always going to be a narrative. We know that. So they're always going to spin the narrative. But it comes back to what I said about Nancy Pelosi. It's like they almost don't think that the internet exists or fact-checking doesn't exist. It only exists on their end. It doesn't exist on the other side. So I sometimes don't understand the thought process that goes through their heads for that. And that stuff's easy to check out, you know, and we've been through the fact-checking on the dossier. We've been through the fact-checking on the election. We've been through the fact-checking on, you know, the Kavanaugh being appointed. It just blows my mind. And
wait till he appoints, whoever he appoints next, they're going to accuse him of murder and rape and
I think it was say what you want about it. I think it was Joe Donnelly who did a thing. He goes Joe said it was an interesting tweet. He goes, the Supreme Court Justice nominee has already been accused of 2 rapes and a murder or something. Totally. Yeah, it was really funny, and the nominee hasn't been selected yet. So 100%. I got a big kick out of that. You know it. Listen, we know he's not stupid. It's going to be a woman. Oh, yeah. And more than likely, he loves this woman out of Miami, the Latino one, which she's a great candidate. She's squeaky clean, the whole bit. She looks like a phenomenal candidate. So it'll be interesting how they go after her.
Right.
That'll be a lot of fun to see play out. And I disagree with the whole theory. Honestly, I want to get your take on this, Brandon. I disagree with the whole theory of like he's supposed to wait and wait. When? 4 months?
Yeah, so what if he waits, and then we only have 8 Supreme Court justices, right? And then what if a case goes to the Supreme Court, and then it rules 4-4? Then what?
And they said, they put the stats up. They said the average justice gets conferred, and I think it's like 27 days was like the long, or 30 days was like the longest. This isn't like a long process. They tend to put these people through pretty quickly. And, you know, I don't understand the whole wait thing. It's September, people.
Well, they want us to wait because they know it's going to help them.
And if they want to blame anybody, you know, they should blame themselves because they could have replaced that seat 100 times over.
Yeah, she should have retired during the Obama
administration. 100%.
I'm not going to sit here and act like I know everything there is to know about her because I've obviously just follow current events. And but yeah, and then you know they're using the death of that woman as a new reason to create outrage. You have AOC on there talking about we need to radicalize like more. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? They're radicalized enough. Look at the streets. You can't even you know, in New York, you can't even eat dinner out on the patio without being attacked by the BLM.
I think New York's in deep shit. I really believe New York's in deep shit.
It's going to be like a new Detroit.
It might be worse.
All the money's going to leave, and then there's going to be no way to pay for all of the infrastructure. And
the only thing that can save them is they have a mayor race coming up. And supposedly, John Katzimatidis is supposed to run. And John's run before. AJ, his daughter, is the head of the Republican Party in New York. And he's got Republican values, even though you don't run as mayor under a label, per se. And Giuliani was a perfect middle-of-the-road guy to the right. But they need to bring someone in strong. And the hope is that in New York, that there's enough common sense voters left upstate that will step in and they'll say, because in the past, New York's a lot like Massachusetts, where we'll elect a Republican governor. The hope is that New York will get a Republican mayor, like these people that have, and when I say upstate, in New York proper, it's the mayor's seat, but they have like vacation homes in the Hamptons and homes upstate, but they all live and work in New York as well. That's always been the New York thing. The hope is that there's enough of them left that they'll vote the right way and we'll be able to get the right guy in there because the country operates a lot better when New York is strong.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like a I mean, it's a world-known landmark. You know, the last Statue of Liberty. That's what everyone thinks of when they think of America, is kind of New York, I would imagine.
It's the gateway of freedom.
Right? I don't think people envision Chicago or California when they think of America, or Miami. I think it's New York.
No, and California has become an absolute cesspool nightmare. It's absolutely terrifying what's gone on and what's happened there. And I talk to a lot of FFL and gun owners and gun shops in California. I've had them on the show, and they've been absolutely cleaned out, wiped out, can't keep around in there because people are so scared, so terrified there that it's literally every day they feel like they're fighting for their existence.
Rightfully so, though. I mean, Southern California isn't as bad. I mean, Orange County is very Republican. San Diego is very Republican. You know, Huntington Beach.
Pockets.
Yeah, there's good strongholds of Republicans in California. But I mean, I might be wrong on this, but I believe there's more registered Republicans in California than any other state other than Texas because of the density.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't see the Texas thing flipping.
Oh, that would be horrible.
I don't see that. I know you have Houston is a huge Democratic pocket, but
Austin as well.
Yeah, I don't see Texas flipping. I think they're kind of spinning their wheels there. The fear is always if Ohio goes, Pennsylvania goes, Wisconsin, so goes the election. That's always the case. And I just think you have too many new gun owners. You have too many people, blue collar, salt of the earth people. I just don't see those states flipping. And I think he loses the popular vote, but I think he wins the Electoral College in a walk. And he's gained way too much ground on Biden in the short run.
I agree, and I mean something it's not an original idea of mine either. But I think what's going to happen is, you know, you have Hillary saying, "Do not concede under any circumstance," and just trying to. I don't even think they're trying to win. I think they're just trying to bring more problems. But I think what's going to happen is Trump's going to win in a landslide for the electoral and for the in-person. But I think he's going to lose the popular. And I think weeks after the election, more and more mail-in bullshit ballots are going to come in, and then they're going to say, "Actually, Joe Biden won."
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
And then if no one concedes, then what? I mean, Trump's in office until January 20th.
Well, what happens is it just like the whole Gore-Bush thing, it kicks to the Supreme Court for a decision.
And if they don't have the new Supreme Court appointed, then it'll be 8-8, or it'll be 8, which can split to 4-4.
Well, yeah,
right?
In theory it could, but the reality is I think the Electoral College tends to always speak for itself. You know, you're able to really, if it's a landslide, even if it was like, hey, like look at him against Hillary. When the dust settled, it was over 100 Electoral College votes. It wasn't close.
Right.
I mean, it really wasn't. But the reality is they hated her so much that they voted for him, which is fucking hilarious, because she was a terrifying candidate. And I think in the end, people want a strong leader in the end. I think people want someone who can make decisions. They want somebody strong in that seat, and I think that's how that plays out. Now, as far as whether the country gets better or worse or how they play this post-election, I don't think they're going to have a choice because I think they're going to be out of arrows in the quiver. I think they've pulled everything that they could. They pulled out all the stops, and at some point you have to say, okay, you know, how far are we going to go with this?
So I'll argue that.
Yeah, give me your theory.
Kind of like what we talked about earlier with the amnesia, right? So I think that Trump would. So the left they're got all these crazy radicals right now starting all this problems and the rioting and all that. And like you said with amnesia, I think that Trump is being smart, even though I don't totally agree with it, with staying out and staying back. Because if he goes in right now and shuts down the riots and shuts down all the bullshit, people are going to forget about that come November 3rd because we remember the news cycle of 24 hours and our brains are already on to the next thing. So I think when Trump does get reelected, I think he will invoke the Insurrection Act, and I think he will go down and shut down all these riots and all this bullshit, which will bring, you know, law and order, like he's been saying, and appease a lot of the people. But I don't know how deep you've been paying attention, but he's done some amazing things already. So in Portland, you know, all the bullshit's going on in Portland and Oregon. Because they keep arresting people, and then the DA just lets them go. They're literally the same day or the next day. They no charges, and the cops are rearresting the same people over and over again. So the cops are very discouraged from even working that area. So Trump deputized the Oregon PD. So now anytime someone gets arrested, it goes to a federal court.
Right.
So, and you know, they're bars doing like 10-year enhancements on everything, which is great. So all these Antifa kids that are out there starting shit and then just getting released the next day thinking they're doing it overnight in jail, and they're now going to get 10 years in federal
prison. You see the girl, She was a massage therapist, actually. Did you see that? If you Google it, she's looking at like 10 years for burning 2 police cars.
Oh, no, that was the lawyer. Are you talking about Portland or New York?
It was, I got to see where it was. She's looking at 10 years for let me look it up.
Well, there's a girl and a guy in New York that were both lawyers that were like in their early 30s that got, I want to say they got like crazy 30-year-long sentences what they're facing for burning a cop car.
So let me see. It's under news. I
believe it was Politico.
Yeah, it's one of them. But she's looking at major time.
She's not alone. If you go on the FBI's Instagram, they do the perp walk and they post all the faces of everyone getting busted. I mean, there's a lot of these guys that are getting rolled.
Philadelphia.
Okay.
So in Philly, this woman, think about what a stupid life decision this is for a second. And this is what it's come to. Philly protester tracked down through Etsy because of the shirt she was wearing, right?
Oh, yes, I do remember.
Accused of setting cop cars on fire and was ordered jailed until trial. She's 33 years old. Seems normal in her pit, normal enough, right? And she's staring down the barrel of, it looks like 10 years. Her name's
federal too.
Yeah, Elizabeth Blumenthal. Elizabeth Blumenthal burned 2 cop cars. She's being called an organizer. Yeah, burned 2 cop cars. She had a T-shirt on that was only sold at Etsy and had left a review, and that's how they tracked her down.
Yep.
Imagine.
Well, another thing that these guys aren't smart to, which is crazy to me. Everyone now, facial recognition's everywhere. Okay, we have cameras all over. In Vegas, it's your big brother over your shoulder, basically. Everyone's got facial recognition software. You don't think that the feds are going to go through all this video footage and just start knocking on doors over the next couple of years? You can be 2 years out of this, thinking you're gun free. Someone's going to knock on your door, like, "Hey, remember this? Here's a video of you throwing a brick through this window."
It cracks me. It really is quite comical because you find out like some of these people, some of them, not all, we can get to Antifa and BLM, but some of these people, they're like professional people. And they get caught up in this, right, because they're so hysterical. And I doubt that this woman, burning 2 cop cars, is this who she really is? Like, is this what it's come to? Like, what's the gain? Like, we always say, right, in business, if it makes money, it makes sense. Like, there's no gain in, like, what the fuck are you doing?
They're just trying to create chaos.
Like, what are you doing? And that's what scares me is what you just said. It's just that desire to create chaos, and they're getting caught up in someone else's agenda and somebody else's goals, and you just want to, like, grab them and shake them and be like, do you understand you're being taken advantage of?
Right. It's like being at a bar and you have one of your hothead buddies who's starting some shit, and you're just like, dude, I'm the one that's going to have to fucking take care of this. Can you please stop?
I'm going to have to unfuck this. But it's all happening. Like, listen. It's all happening in democratic cities, and it's all happening in places that it's quite comical to me because it's happening in areas that those states are only going to look terrible. It's going to be really interesting how it plays out in Baltimore. There's that black candidate, Kim, who's running, and I'm telling you, she's gaining steam and she's gaining a lot of attention nationally, and her ads and everything she's doing is really slick, and I know you've probably seen some of them. Yeah. And she's showing what Baltimore's become over the last 50 years of Democratic leadership, and she's doing a great job of it, and she's the ideal candidate. Where our party, Republican Party, fucks up, where the right fucks up sometimes, is even still in Nevada. We still want to push these old candidates on people. And we've had a lot of great candidates come through here. There was a couple of great candidates that I thought stood a really good chance. And when we get these young, energetic, exciting, good candidates with great marketing ideas and great ad placement, those are the ones we need to bring in. And Kim's doing a great job of frickin' bringing that to the forefront. It's going to be interesting how it plays out with her election.
Did you see her on The View the other day? That was such a fucked up interview. Just talking over her, and I mean, I got frustrated.
I don't know how The View stays on.
Yeah. Who watches it?
I mean, it's got to be, to me, okay. As I said before, I respect everybody else's opinion, but to me, The View jumped the shark when Whoopi Goldberg was like, I heard that Jill Biden was going to be a great candidate for Surgeon General. And I think it was Joy Behar who corrected her. She goes, her PhD is in education. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, if that doesn't tell you that these people do no research, what will?
Well, yeah, that's one thing I hate too, is when people get excited about someone just because who they are, a celebrity or something like that. Like you have all these people talking about The Rock, like, oh, The Rock should run for president. I'd vote for him. Okay, what is his foreign policy? What is his views on abortion? Like, yeah, they don't know anything about the guy, but just because he's popular, they want to.
He's got to save bodybuilding first.
Right, steroids illegal.
Yeah,
illegal.
He's got to save bodybuilding first, The Rock, because and that gets to a bigger issue with Olympia coming up and whether or not that whole thing's going to be savable.
I don't think so. I think the Olympia show will, of course, happen, but I don't think the expo will go.
No, the expo's done this year, but even if the show's savable in the long run.
They moved the expo to December.
Yeah.
But I still think it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I think the show will happen. I have no doubt the expo won't happen. Because the expo, as you know, is turned into a t-shirt swap meet, shakers.
Well, no one even goes to them anymore because, you used to go to an expo to be able to meet these guys, right? And kind of like how you talked about the success of podcasts, people don't need to go meet them anymore because they kind of know who they are through all the content that we're able to put out through social media and podcasts and things like that. So people are less reluctant to go. And also, you don't need to go because you have every idiot walking around with their phone on IG Live and you can see the entire expo from your living room.
Yeah, fitness isn't an innovative enough industry that like going to a show is going to what's the gain? Right? At the end of the day, what's the real gain? I've been to 1 million of them. I was with 2 brands, multiple years, been to the shows. When I was signed to Gas, Bam, Blackstone, and everything, I was on top of the world, in the fitness world. I loved it. But I'd sit there and I'd be like, people coming around looking for free pre-workout samples. I'm like, there's no way this is sustainable. The only way they save Olympia, in my opinion, is if they get to some level of streaming where they can make money off it, not on the floor. Because that's a one-to-one model. And I think you know what I mean. Sell a boot space, make $1. Sell a boot space, make $1. They have to do something where they're capitalizing on the streaming or they're capitalizing on streaming the show. Like selling tickets to the competition, to me, is the dumbest shit ever. They should put the competition out on the main floor the same way they do with the Arnold. So you have the opportunity to kind of see the majority of the shows on the floor in real time, as opposed to buying tickets to go to the Olympia show. It should be one ticket.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. Because the diehards will always go to the show, but the average person that you kind of want to get into the sport, because that's where the money's going to come from, they're not going to go pay that extra money to go sit in the fucking.
And not only that, half the sponsors buy all the tickets, then they give them away, right. Because that's what they have to do to fill the room.
Right.
And to me, I just I get that Olympia has always been the flagship show, and I've talked about this with Jay at length. I'm like, until they get to a point where you can do all the business that has to be done on the floor over the phone. You could do 90% of the business that's done on the floor. The expo is an opportunity, if you're a smaller business, maybe to get some airplay, but essentially it's turned into like a t-shirt swap meet, shakers, all the low level stuff.
Cheap stuff.
And I just think if you want to get excitement around the show and you want to get people excited to go to the show, I love the Arnold Classic. You go to the Arnold Classic, you don't know what room to walk in. There's always something going on. There's stuff everywhere. And that's what I love about the Arnold Classic. What the Olympia lacks is what the Arnold Classic has. And that's that excitement of a whole bunch of stuff going on, a melting pot of things. And the Olympia needs to take a step towards doing something like that and incorporating some of the powerlifting, incorporating some of the other stuff, and not making it just about a bodybuilding show that at the end of the day, they're trying to gas you up on tickets. And it's like even like the little stuff they do, like the Meet the Pros stuff. Who's going to that?
And not only that, the pros are not excited to meet you.
So true.
They're all dieted down, about to compete or just competed. They're not excited to talk to you.
And they pop in for an hour and they leave, and it's very hard. I like that they were doing some of the seminar type stuff, and I think if they did more of that on the open floor, Brennan, that's the stuff that would excite me as a guy who's a veteran in the fitness community and been around it for a long time. Like if I had an opportunity and I'm walking the floor, and let's say you had like Jay, Guy, like you had a nice crew up there, Brian Shaw, maybe you, like a bunch talking about lifting and talking about the lifestyle, even like not in like a podcast format, but you streamed that, I think that'd be the balls. Like, I'd be like, I want to sit and watch this for a little bit. I want to hear these guys' thoughts on some stuff.
That already does exist on a smaller scale. Like, I mean, I've sat
Bob does a little thing.
Jay as well.
Yeah.
I've sat on Jay talking at seminars at expos. But again, it's not a very big thing, you know, like where you can have like a panel of guys in each hour or something like that.
Right.
I understand what you mean. And a little more interactive where you can kind of talk to them, ask questions and they respond. Again, that does exist at these shows, but not
to the scale.
Right, not very large.
It's not to the scale, but I think if you streamed it too, that's what would draw people in and get people excited, because at the end of the day, then you'd be able to draw in the YouTube money. You'd be able to draw in some of the people that necessarily can't make the show and get them interacting and chiming in. But I feel like streaming is something that's become almost so like glazed over because they think it's like crazy. They think like, I say to them, like, you could put a cell phone and stream it, and people look at me like I have 10 heads. Like, what do you mean? Like,
right.
You know, I was at an event where I suggested that, and everybody looked at me like I invented oxygen. I was like, it's not that hard. But I think they, you know, Olympia is going to go through an interesting flux, and as we said earlier, then The Rock comes in with his show, and that got pushed this year. It was supposed to happen this year, wasn't it?
Titan Games?
Yeah, no, he's doing a bodybuilding show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
right.
that got pushed, though. I think he was supposed to launch it this year. I think it was this year. I'm not sure. But I think he's going to bring it in next year, and that's going to be interesting because that might bring in national money. I got to look it up. The Rock's bodybuilding show, and that was supposed to be in Atlanta. Huh. Yeah, he was supposed to bring that in. But that'll be really interesting with that $7 Promotions. You know, he's going to put on his own bodybuilding show. It's slated for 2020, and the rumor is that it'll be bigger than Olympia, and the prize money will be tremendously increased. And whether or not it'll be interesting, because if that fluffs or spits in the eye of the Olympia, how that'll play out.
Yeah, because there'll be some politics there.
A ton.
Well, they won't let guys compete in that show. They want to do Olympia.
And we saw that with the Vince McMahon thing years ago.
I wasn't a part of it then. I don't remember.
Yeah, Vince McMahon, it was years, we were kids. He tried to bring in a bodybuilding show, and guys who went to his federation, whatever you call it, they got like outcast from the Olympia.
That exists in powerlifting as well.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out and whether or not, you know, The Rock is able to pull it off and how that all looks. And it's it looks like it might be an IFBB pro show, but I mean, we'll see. We'll see.
It has to be.
Yeah, it's going to have some federation backing.
It's got to be IFBB for anyone to fucking care.
We
it's
can't
not
make
IFBB, no one will care.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because he'll bring in corporate money, which will change everything.
Well, then maybe people will care because everyone cares about money.
Yeah, at the end of the day, that's what's going to drive it. So, all these things considered, I think shows in general, the only show that's standing steadfast is going to be SHOT Show. So
that's canceled this year, right? Mm-mm. Oh no, that's
on.
I'm thinking of the fucking SEMA.
Yeah,
SHOT Show's on. SEMA's canceled.
SEMA got canceled. SHOT Show is 100% on according to the NSSF. I just had Larry on not long ago. SHOT Show is a 100% go. Whether or not it happens is another story. So that's slated for the third week of January. So we have some time. And I think what Larry's banking on is the election and how that plays out.
Oh, yeah. After November 3rd, there'll be no more restrictions for COVID.
I agree with you. I
truly believe that.
I agree with you. At some point, they have to ditch this whole mask thing because the CDC just came out with that report that it doesn't travel through air. So it's going to be interesting to see how long they stick to their guns with the mask thing.
They'll keep pushing it because all these states spent all this money on masks, so they got to sell them.
I think they're pushing it because of the assimilation to China. They want to assimilate us to the Chinese culture, and that's their backhanded way of trying to assimilate us. And I think it was pushed on us because I believe, whether it's through these riots, through the Antifa, through everything, it allows people to cover their face. Yep. It allows people to get away with face coverings and do the things that they're doing. So I actually am developing a little bit of a conspiracy theory around the masks.
No, I'm kind of in there already.
And I think they should be done away with for a number of reasons beyond even the corny excuse that it's for your health.
Well, when did the government be in control of my health. I thought the government's role was to protect the Constitution and protect us from foreign invaders and domestic terrorists. So they're not defecting us from domestic terrorists because we have Antifa running around like crazy. And then they're now forcing us to do things for our health. When has that ever been? I mean, am I wrong?
I just asked a simple question. I just say, is it a law?
Depending on who you ask, people will say yes, even though that's not true.
And then I ask, just like you, if I can't be served here because of not wearing a mask, I'll go somewhere else.
Yep.
And I'm sure somebody will.
We will not spend $1 anywhere that requires you to wear a mask. We've done it. We've walked into places many times and they ask us to leave and we leave. We were in Bed Bath & Beyond the other day to get some freaking curtains. And right when we walk in, I feel bad.
Oh, they're like security there.
Well, it's like two little high school girls or, young girls at the front. They're like, oh, do you have your mask? And I'm like, no. I just continue walking. I'm not trying to argue with these little girls. That's not their job. And we're in there shopping, and about 10 minutes we're in the store, and then they send some little dude over to tell me that I have to put a mask on, and I was like, I have to? And he's like, yeah, I think so. You have to. I was like, if I have to put a mask on, then I'm going to leave. He's like, oh, okay, I'm sorry then. I was like, all right, later. We left.
I don't blame you. I sometimes just to glaze over it, I'm like, I have a health condition.
I could say that, but I don't even want to fucking say that. I just want to be like, leave me the fuck alone.
That diffuses the whole thing.
I hear you.
I'm just into like straight diffusing them. I keep one in my pocket, but when I tell you 90% of the time I don't wear it, 90% of the time I don't wear it.
Well, it's funny when we've done some traveling recently, we went through Idaho, spent some time in Montana, spent some time in Wyoming, and a lot of these states there's no mask mandate at all.
Yeah, Montana, nothing.
Well, when we first got to Montana, they were enforcing the mask deal, or they weren't enforcing it, but they had signs up. Like we went to the Walmart to get some ammo and shit. Or no, we went to Murdoch's to buy ammo.
Murdoch's.
I love Murdoch's. Anyways, we walk in, and so wear your mask, all the signs, but I'm not wearing a mask, and no one said a fucking word. And then people that were wearing masks, when they see us walking around without a mask on, they were taking their mask off and putting it in their pocket. So you got to lead by, if you truly believe that this is bullshit, you need to lead by example and just not wear the fucking mask.
Amen.
Yeah.
I like that. That makes all the sense in the world. Believe it or not, we've gone an hour and a half already.
Oh, okay.
It's fucking crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Bro, I love this. I could go for days.
Same, man.
I love it. So listen, let everybody know where they can find you, how they can reach you, and how they can get in contact with you.
Well, if you're looking for me, Instagram will probably be the best way. Brandon_Allen88. And just if you have any questions about fitness or training, powerlifting, you can hit me up on there. I do online coaching as well as in-person coaching at Filthy Power Gym here in Las Vegas.
Filthy.
Yeah, that's also my gym as well. So if you're in Vegas, you need a gym to train out, check out Filthy Power Gym. If you need a coach for powerlifting and strength, hit me up on the IG. What about the podcast? Plug it. Podcast, I'm actually currently paused on. The broadcast is my podcast that we're not doing anymore. But you can still listen to it. Definitely still listen to the broadcast. It's on Spotify, iTunes. You can find it there. My wife and I are actually getting ready to start a podcast, and I guess I'll plug that, where it's going to be a couple, maybe 10 or so short podcasts where we're going to talk about some of the funny stories. Those that know me know we have a lot of great stories of traveling. We were 360 pounds and being, flying to Australia and all this crazy shit. You've heard my story. You've heard my version of it. Now it's time to hear Jenny's version because it's probably going to be a little more honest on her end. Yeah. That's what I thought Rob and Dana's was going to be. And then it morphed into Rob just bullshitting for an hour on that. I messaged. I was like, I thought like you and Dana were going to. And he's like, I would love to see them do something like that too. Yeah. I thought that'd be funny. But I think the world needs a couples podcast. I think that's the best shit because that's when, We're going to call it the Daily BJ. It's not going to be daily. But we're going to call it the Daily BJ. That's perfect. So I'll put your links down below. Appreciate it. I highly suggest everybody go check out his stuff. He's definitely one of my, fast becoming one of my favorite people. I was scrolling through and trolling through some of his stuff. I love it. So I think the world needs to get punched in the face once in a while. And it's nice to see a cold dose of reality on social media every now and then. So I'll put those links down below. Everyone go check it out. I got to thank you for coming in. Thank you, man. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Oh, this is awesome. We're going to hang out. We'll talk some guns for a few. This will be fucking awesome. I appreciate everyone who listened. I appreciate all the sponsors, Rhino Metals, Gallo Tech, Blackwater Ammunition, Right On Optics, and, of course, Galco Leather, Galco Holsters. Go check them all out.
And head over to the website and leave reviews everywhere podcasts are heard. Go check out Brendan Allen. I'm going to put all his stuff down below. I appreciate him taking the time. I appreciate him coming in. It means a lot. And getting his views on everything is just, it's fucking refreshing, man. It really is. So I appreciate you. We are going to be out, and leave reviews and go check out all the links below.